Ruth, in her relationship to her mother-in-law Naomi, is a model for us in our relationship to the Jewish people. She accompanies her mother-in-law. She gives up everything for her, her family, her home, her people, her religious and theological beliefs, her security, the familiar surroundings, simply everything. And she does that even though she is not welcomed with open arms. She's taken a big risk. Just remember how bitter Naomi was, and remember that when she and Naomi returned to Bethlehem, the people there in no way received the two with open arms, welcoming them with a meal or whatever. After Ruth had announced, where you go, I will go. Where you stay overnight, I will stay overnight. Your people is my people. Your God is my God. Where you die, will I die. There I will be buried. So shall the Lord do to me, and so shall he continue to do, if, only if, death might separate us. Only after Ruth has said that, it is, I would say, even in a cold, matter-of-fact manner, the scroll of Ruth over and over again emphasizes that Ruth is the Moabitess. And Naomi doesn't give the impression that she is overly enthusiastic that Ruth is following her. Nonetheless, Ruth goes with her, commits herself to Naomi, and gives up everything. I try to teach you to see the big lines throughout the Bible, and I'd like to just hint at the fact that this love for Israel is something that goes throughout the Bible, that kind of accompanies us as we go through the different stories in the Bible. Look at Moses. The one true and living God had offered him. He actually was bitter. He was sour at Israel, who was dancing around the golden calf. He was in wrath and says, now let me alone. Let my wrath burn against them and consume them, and I will make you a great nation. The ironic fact is that God here actually offers to Moses what the church, the Christian church, dreamed of for 2,000 years. And Islam wanted always, for the past 1,400 years, to replace Israel as God's people. But then it is Moses who says, forgive them. But if you can't do that, then blot me out of the book that you have written. It is this very same love we find with the prophet Jeremiah, to whom God at least 3 times says, don't pray for this people. Don't intercede for them. I will not listen to you. Just think about that. If you want to make a prayer group for Israel, because somehow God has put this nation onto your heart, and then you get this promise, I will not hear you. It's very encouraging. It's depressing. And still, Jeremiah goes on. Or think of the Apostle Paul. He, in Romans 9, uses a wording that I found hardly a Bible translation that is really translating literally also what we see there from Paul's heart. Dares to translate there that Paul says, I commit myself with an oath in front of you, before you. I'm praying, I'm interceding for this nation. I myself want to be cursed and cut off from Messiah. Just think what that means. We would not dare to say these words if we think about Israel. And in the end, it is Yeshua himself, Jesus himself, at the cross, who sees the people who brought him up there and says, praise, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. I certainly personally would have thought of all kinds of other things when I would have felt what Jesus felt in that way, in that moment. This is the love we see in a way in Ruth when she follows her mother-in-law, when she does everything Naomi commanded her, and actually Boaz sees that and he honors that. Later on he emphasizes, I saw what you did and how you behaved towards your mother-in-law. We see this same behavior, for example, in the centurion from Capernaum, where the people come and say and ask Jesus, listen to him, for he is the one who built our synagogue. He is worthy of your help. Or the same we see with Cornelius from Caesarea, also a Roman commander who the New Testament tells us has a good name, is well spoken of among the whole of the Jewish nation. Now I'm excited about what Paul writes, that salvation has come to us Gentiles so that we will make the Jewish people envious. And I see this in Ruth as I look at Jewish, modern, Orthodox, Jewish exegesis of the book of Ruth, but also ancient Midrashim. They say that Ruth came and she was after all a Gentile. And she did not deny, says the Midrash, the ancient Jewish exegesis, she did not deny her bitter mother-in-law. And by doing so, by loving her, Ruth convicted Israel, which actually rebelled against the living God. Or we see that in modern Orthodox exegesis, that they emphasize the extraordinary devotion Ruth has to her mother, her loyalty. And against all logic, I quote here a lady from these hills, from these Judean hills, who expounded the book of Ruth and wrote a book about it. She says, against all logic, against her own self-interest, this Moabite woman relinquishes her future. And Ruth's love for Naomi is a reflection of her love to God, and actually a reflection finally of God's love towards Israel. And thus Ruth educates by her example, by teaching us how to embrace this God totally and utterly.